Good afternoon from Cyprus. My name is Evangelia Christodoulidou, and I would like to thank everyone who worked to make this amazing seminar happen. Good luck to all the participants, and let's start with my presentation. The educational role of archaeology as an integral part of public archaeology has great impact to the community. Either in non-typical teaching environments or under formal teaching conditions, archaeology can develop skills related to creativity and exploration and values like understanding and tolerance. Schools, as places where interactive teaching methods are developed and applied, should include alternative educational ways that promote the said values. Especially in the case of Cyprus, where the 37% of the island was taken in 1974 under violent conditions by the Turkish army. This paper is part of an ongoing PhD research conducted at the University of Athens and supervised by Marlen Mouliou, professor of museology. The purpose of this study is to examine the pedagogy of archaeology in public primary and secondary education of Cyprus by recording the existing educational references and suggesting alternative ways to enhance archaeology teaching through history classes. The goal of this research is to set the teaching framework of archaeology in the public educational sphere of Cyprus and define and promote its social implications. The main tools of this research are the existing history school books, the history curricula, educators' opinions, and the existing museum education system available for schools. Also, the design and application of new archaeology-oriented lessons in different public schools and levels, which will be aligned to the history curricula. For that reason, a specialized research plan has been submitted to the Ministry of Education of Cyprus, waiting for approval. Until this procedure is completed, trial attempts on small focus groups of children and teenagers are carried out, for which I will be talking for later. Today's presentation will try to explain at first how the available history teaching material, that is the textbooks and curricula, is being processed and which are its major characteristics. Then it will focus on the gymnasium grades of secondary education, where children aging from 12 to 15 years old study by citing two different teaching experiments that concentrate on the principles of archaeological excavation and museum education. As both history textbooks and curricula are in text format, content analysis, a systematic research method for text analysis is applied in order to categorize, compare, and contrast a corpus of data and track down key trends and themes through systematic text coding. For the purposes of this research, content analysis is applied to record a broad number of definitions related to archaeology and answer sets of questions related to material culture. The results of this analysis on the gymnasium textbooks and curricula indicate that a significant number of material culture references is recorded in relation to the smaller number of keywords or phrases that present archaeology as a science and archaeologists as a profession or related to museum excavations. Comparing also the material culture references from grade to grade, the material culture references in chapters whose content is ancient history are larger in numbers than those appearing in chapters where Byzantine, medieval, or modern history is presented, creating a false idea on how the material culture can enlighten all periods and aspects of prehistorical and historical times. Taking also into consideration the professor's opinions that underline the lack of time and optical equipment and the absence of museum education in secondary school, there is not an official teaching frame for archaeology through the history lessons of secondary schools at Cyprus. The archaeological information references are subjective and based on whether the teacher decides to make a special reference. The archaeological material that could substantiate the theory of history and spark children's imagination is wasted. While the references are decades, there is not a scientific framework to support them. The wealth of this information is eventually lost. Taking into consideration all of the above, and in an effort to include archaeological information to school history lessons, I propose the creation of specialized courses that will be in line with the school curricula, but they will include museum learning characteristics and excavation method. Trying to apply this idea to a small focus group, I have created a new lesson plan developed in 4 thematic pillars. The first was to introduce myself as an archaeologist and why I chose to become one. The second was to explain what archaeology does and how, through its main scientific key points like surface research, excavation method, stratigraphy, chronology, and findings recording. The third was to apply basic information on stratigraphy and findings recording through the sandbox method, a microscale excavation game that allows the students to observe, excavate, interpret data, and try to explain the past. The fourth pillar was to choose a specific unit from the history curricula and textbook and try to tell again the historical narrative through archaeology and material culture. For that purpose, I used the Battle of Marathon, which is taught in the context of the Persian Wars in the first grade of gymnasium, mentioning nothing about the archaeological data. In an effort to build up a new narrative, extra attention was paid to Marathon's topography, the Marathon's tomb, and the excavations that took place, the Marathon's museum, and the archaeological finds that declare the epic battle. In another occasion, a different focus group with 3 students of different ages was organized. Thematic pillars 1 and 2 were applied, but a different sandbox was prepared for the microscale excavation. The students were asked to follow the stratigraphy prepared for them, and in each layer, a different find was waiting for them. A plastic card was buried in each of the layers. From top to bottom, these cards were depicting main definitions related with the science of archaeology, like time, place, different cultures and traditions, research tools, and absolute and relative dating. Students were encouraged to reframe the information provided in Pillar 2 during the excavation procedure and describe the cards found in each layer in order to fit in their own narrative. In the bottom layer, a local stone collection, a stone hand tool I found in my great-grandmother's kitchen, and a fish fossil were found in each box. Although the finds seem not to be easily related, describing them a new history was put together with characteristics not easily met in history textbooks. From past geological remnants to local geological facts and a complete stone tool, students tried to approach how people would understand nature for their survival and why this is important for archaeology and school history. Daily life characteristics of different culture groups is mentioned as one of the most important goals of the history curricula of all grades. The structure of this focus group is different than the first one, as more attention was given to the excavation method and the kind of information its results can provide us. The fourth pillar was left out on purpose in an effort to create a more general lesson plan that can be applied to any grade of primary and secondary education. In case of the pandemic will not allow me to visit schools, this should be used as a Plan B solution. The outcome of the teaching experiments is indeed valuable. The children that participated had many questions regarding archaeology, the possible kinds of finds, and what they can tell us about everyday life or major facts can change it, and were thrilled with the mini excavation procedure and their discoveries. The greatest satisfaction for me was the fact that the children were amused with an alternative history lesson fully supported by archaeology. Having in mind that more teaching scenarios must be tested, but be confident for the positive effect they can have on students of all ages, I am suggesting that a new learning framework should be established in the public education, wishing at the same time to overcome all the issues arising from the pandemic in order to implement and have the appropriate feedback. Through this framework, specialized teaching actions will hopefully promote archaeology on a regular basis through school history and will activate the most creative history didactic methods that will show a new way of learning based on discovery. Fun and creative success, escaping for a while from their barriers of the traditional teaching. Thank you.